As we checked in to the Woodlands Hotel and Suites, we were directed to our hospitality suite, where we received our welcoming packets and renewed old friendships and established new ones. On Wednesday, we had a rather full day. We started out with a guided tour of historic Williamsburg, with a visit to the Visitor Center where we viewed the film The Patriot starring Jack Lord. Then we went on to visit the House of Burgesses and other points of interest in the historic area. The following are pictures of the historic area. And we ended the guided tour at Merchant Square, where we were on our own for lunch.
The reason for that is because we don't have political parties back then in America yet. George Washington, matter of fact, after the new nation begins to form and starts to have those same debates we have today, there's a bench up here if y'all want to sit on that too. He warns against factions, that if we start taking sides like they do in England.
The background music you are listening to is Aerial Fantasy, performed by the United States Air Force Band. Our evening festivities started out in the breakfast area of the Woodlands, where we were met by George Wythe, one of our founding fathers, who signed the Declaration of Independence, taught Thomas Jefferson and John Marshall, and was a strong proponent on the importance of the Bill of Rights. As with all of our reenactors, they do not deviate from the script. However, although many of our founding fathers, like Thomas Jefferson and George Wythe, disliking Patrick Henry, as well as others, and they openly expressed their dislike for one another. However, they all listened to the opposition. Therefore, we were able to compromise, enabling all of us to enjoy the fruits of their labors, the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution containing the Bill of Rights. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our political leaders today could do so?
In the House of Burgesses chamber, and he would remind them of their responsibilities, particularly on this issue of freedom of speech, the ability to express openly ideas of divergent opinions. We shall engage in serious and at times heated debate, but do not imagine that this conflict is to be avoided. A variety of opinions is not only absolutely necessary to our natures, but is likewise of all things most useful. Since if all men were of one mind, there would be no need of counsels, no subject of learning and eloquence. Within this process we shall hear one another patiently, put the weight of every man's reason against our own, and at last form a judgment upon the matter which will be honest and commendable. And I cannot think of anything more honest or commendable than allowing an opponent to freely express their ideas, but also riding that fine line of protecting that which is creatively and appropriately your own. Fair enough?
I think it's the hand in glove. That's what I think.
Your answer was simple. You want to come up here and do this?
Upon completion of George Wythe's talk, Williamsburg's Fife and Drum Escort showed up to escort us to our dinner at the Cascades Room in the Woodlands Convention Center. We had a cash bar on the terrace of the Cascades roof and started our banquet with the Pledge of Allegiance presented by John Wayne, followed by Dick Huberty giving the invocation. Our dinner consisted of braised steak or grilled salmon with cherry truffle for dessert. Dan Mitchin was in touch with the Kagnew vet and author Paul Bennett. Paul is a sports writer and still working in Maine and could not attend. He wrote a mystery novel called Kagnew Station, and Dan offered it for sale. The book, if you'd like to purchase one, they are available on Amazon.com. Our after-dinner speaker was one of the great debaters and citizen of 18th century Williamsburg. As a practicing attorney, he quickly gained renown for challenging the king's right to veto American legislation. This caused his election to the House of Burgesses in 1765, where he again caused a big stir with his Stamp Act resolves. He served as a delegate to the first two sessions of the Continental Congress, was the commander-in-chief of the Virginian Army. Through his efforts, Virginia, the first colony to do so, declared independence from Great Britain, elected for 5 terms as the first governor of the Republic of Virginia. History knew him as the voice of our revolution, Patrick Henry.
Side of the world, we hope that it will serve as a beacon of hope too. But for the envious, this you may depend upon. There will always be those wicked forces, both from without of our shores as well as from within. Why, indeed within our own governments at times. Men who are going to seek to change our uniquely American way of life, which we hold so dear and so precious, to impose their will upon us and to deprive us of that precious jewel of liberty. When those times of crisis do come into the future, I pray that gentlemen and ladies like you will once again rise to the occasion, and that you might use some words for a battle cry, which I myself uttered last year in Richmond Town. Liberty or death. For Americans, there is no other option. God save you.
After dinner, we all had our picture taken. Thursday, some of us continued to visit the historic area of colonial Williamsburg. Here we have George Washington speaking.
People of the city of Williamsburg. Though I have garnered some small fame in the late war with France, I'm full aware that most of you will not have made my acquaintance. So perhaps some small introduction may be in order. My name is George Washington. I've had the honor of serving our regiments in the late war against France, vestryman and warden to Truro Parish, Burgess, first to Frederick and more recently Fairfax County. And last fall, I had the great honor of being chosen amongst a delegation to represent Virginia in a General Congress in Philadelphia. From the martial life, I'm presently in retirement, and I hope to find more happiness in that retirement than ever I found in the wide and bustling world. But I come before you this April morning in 1775, that I might discuss circumstances with you, the people, and stimulate you, I hope, into entering into a cordial agreement to purchase no goods from Great Britain. The taxes that have been imposed upon North America by the administration in Great Britain, these have enraged those of us who look upon them as a direful attack upon our liberties. What the end result of these measures might be, I will not take it upon myself to determine, but this I will affirm. That any monies raised by these unconstitutional measures will fall far short the expectations of Great Britain. Do not all of our resources already flow into that place?
Peyton Randolph's home. Peyton Randolph was one of the most wealthiest people in Virginia at this time. In point of fact, he could have been the first president of these United States had he not died in 1775.
Public service. I was elected to my first public office here in Williamsburg. I took my seat in the old House of Burgesses that spring of 1769. I had no idea that would be the beginning of those 40 years. Any more than I had the idea when I first rode down the Duke of Gloucester Street here that winter of 59 and 60, that 10 years later I would be elected to public office. And I certainly did not think then.
A number of vets were able to charter the sailing schooner Alliance and took a 2-hour sail on the York River. Dan Mitchin, at about 4:30, held what he described as a media event and showed a travel video of Eritrea today, as well as other pictures of Kagnew. A number of us assembled in a caravan and attended the Williamsburg Consorts Band concert at the Warwick High School. The conductor was Major Scott Guidry, director of the U.S. Air Force Band in Washington, D.C. We hope you all enjoyed this, our 8th annual Kagnew Station reunion.